introduce today's speakers. Dahnaya Joyner is a software engineer with over 8 years of experience, specializing in front-end development. Her passion for coding extends beyond just writing code. She loves teaching and mentoring others to grow on their skills. She's had the privilege of working as an instructor and tutor for helping aspiring and current developers navigate the complexities of web development. And our second speaker, Shirley. She is a front-end developer and UI designer, co-founder of Angular Perú, Google Developers Group organizer, mentor, and volunteer in tech communities with over 5 years of experience in front-end development. She is a remote worker who enjoys working and traveling. She loves also video games, painting, and swimming. We are honored to have you, Dahnaya and Shirley, today, and the stage is all yours.
Okay, thank you. I will start.
Question yourself, what about your self-worth makes you feel like giving those intimate, deep parts of yourself to a man that ain't even.
Can you see my screen?
We do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hello everyone. We will start with this beginner JavaScript session. In this case, today we will talk about objects and object reference versus values. Well, I'm Shirley Ramos, and I am really happy to be here. So we will start. Okay, so the agenda will be, we will see objects, we'll do some introduction to objects, creating and manipulating objects in JavaScript, and then the object reference versus values. We will see primitive versus referent types. So let's talk about objects. I mean, here I put an example. In this case, we are talking about a person. So if you see here, an object is a collection of properties where each property is a key value pair. So a person will have a name, in this case, Anna. We have an age, in this case, 25. And also you can put inside the object, like this read, there will be a special, this will be like a function if you want to say hello. So this is also about, this is possible inside in the object. So here I wanted to put like a second example, more easier for you. In this case, we can think that we have a backpack, and what we have inside in the backpack, like the compartments, would be all the items that an object has, like color. In this case, the color will be the property, and blue will be the value. And is the same for the size. In this case, size would be the property of the backpack, and medium would be other value. And I think this would be like more easy for us to understand what is an object. And in the last, well, in the line 4, has water bottle, for example, in this case, it would be true. The property will be has water bottle, and the value will be the true. Okay, so about properties and methods. Properties will be like variables associated with an object, and the methods will be the functions inside an object. It will be methods in the second part, I think. So for now, we will be focused on the properties and the values. For example, console log person, and the name will be the property. In this case, as you could see in the previous example, Anna will be the name, and the second will be like person, and you will have the greet that will be hello that we saw in the previous example. Okay, about creating and manipulating objects. So, yeah, the common methods, and you can write an object with a literal notation. For example, you can have a variable const car. Inside, you will have the brand of the car, in this case Toyota, and the model will be Corolla. All of this is an object where, as we said before, you can have the properties and the values. The second type we have would be like this type of constructor. When, for example, you have or you want to write about a book. Well, const book will be a new object. You use parentheses, and then you will put like the title, the author, and all of the properties that you want to put inside of the object you are writing about a book. In this case, book.title, JavaScript for beginners, and in the line 3, book.author, there will be John Doe. This will be like another example. And well, in an object, you can manipulate it like adding and deleting properties. In this case, about the example that we had about the car, and you can add another property, in this case, color. In the previous example, we had the brand and the model, but you can also add another property. This will be the color, and the value will be red. You can also delete properties. Delete, and will be car.model, for example, if you want to delete this property. Okay, and also with objects, you can iterate. You can do a lot of things with the object, and for this case, you can use for if you want to iterate about the values that you have inside. For example, let key in car, then you will have console log, you will have parentheses, literal strings, and you will have the value from key, and then car, and also key. And well, this is like another type of example if you are manipulating more, well, the object. Okay, then we will have primitives versus reference types. I think most of you maybe have heard about the kind of types that we have in JavaScript. For example, primitives are stored directly in the variable. So in this case, I put a lot of examples about all the types that we have. About the string, these values are related to, well, a word, about the name, about a lot of the words that are defined or that are put inside of comillas. This goes. And for example, a const, there will be name, and you will have the name inside of this. Like, sorry. So a string holding someone's name, for example. And then you will have, if you put a console log and you call the name, you will have the output John. This will be the same for first name, second name, and a lot of more examples. Then you will have number. If you want to define a variable about the age, you will have 25. So this will be a number. If you want to define a price, you will have another number, and this will be this kind of types that you will have in JavaScript as numbers. About Boolean, it is related about what is true and what is false. For example, if you define a const that is sunny, and this is true, okay. This one to say that it's sunny, it's really sunny. But if it's raining, so you know that it's sunny, this will be false. So in JavaScript, you will have this kind of examples, or when you have some values about numbers or what else you want to do are you doing in your function or something, and you will see the difference. It's only true or false. It will be related to Boolean. About undefined, as its name says, it is not defined. So, for example, if you call a variable let user, the console log of user will be undefined because this don't has a value. About null, this is empty or doesn't exist. For example, const no value will be null because it's empty. So there's not a value inside. So the console log we have about no value will be null in this case. And well, about primitive versus reference, in this case, about the reference types, we also have objects, arrays, and functions. And so an object, as we saw before, it's like having a box and inside having a lot of elements. So in this case, as we saw before with Anna, in this case, we have a person with the same, a name, the value Alice, the other property, the age, and the value would be 30. And in this case, a new property will be job. The value will be developer. So this will be the kind of object we have, but also we have arrays. And sometimes we used to will be maybe confused about why an object and why an array. In this case, an array will have a group of elements, but these are the same elements. Okay, so for example, if we have fruits, we will have apple, banana, orange, watermelon, etc. So this is really different about an object. Maybe it's alike, but it's different. So for example, if you want to know in which number have the element, for example, apple will start at 0. And if you want to call the second element would be orange because it's 0 for apple, banana will be first, and second will be orange in that order. But in this case, I hope it's understandable for you that these two are different. And well, about functions, it will be like I think we will see more about this in the second part, in the second module, but this is related about what we want to, that we can do, for example, to give some functionality in our websites, in what we want to do. If we want to open a burger menu or something, we will use a function because we want to build something to do some action inside of the code. And well, here I have another example. In this case, we will define a variable x. Let x will be equal to 10. And then the second line will have the variable y, let y equal x. So if you put a value for the variable that will be j, it will be equal to 20. Changing j does not affect x because at the beginning you also have a value for the x. So the console log will have for x will be 10 and for y will be 20. And well, that will be all for my part. Thank you. I hope this will be helpful for you.
All right. Thank you, Shirley, for that. I'm gonna share my screen. Sorry about that. All right. Okay. So going to be talking about understanding arrays and maps in JavaScript. So just for an overview of the agenda, we'll be talking about, I'll be introducing you to arrays or continuing what Shirley was talking about. Some array methods. We're gonna learn about array cardio, what are maps, practical use cases of maps, and what you can do with them. So what are arrays? They're ordered collection of values accessible by index, and they're the foundation for many operations in JavaScript. So here we have an example of a numbers array, and you're accessing the zero index or the first element, and that will output 1, or you can add to the array, and we'll get more into this in the next few slides. So in order to create an array, there's 2 different ways you can do this. One, you can use an array literal, which is when you use square brackets to define the array, and optionally you can initialize with elements. So we have this empty array, which is square brackets with no elements, and we have filled array, which has the elements of 1, 2, and 3. The other way to create an array is an array constructor. With an array constructor, you can have no arguments, which will create an empty array. If you pass in a single numeric argument, it specifies the length of the array. It will still be empty, but now it's expecting like the array to be a certain length. And if you pass in multiple arguments, that populates the array with the provided elements. So we can see those examples here of an empty array, or passing in 1 argument, or passing in multiple. Accessing elements. So we have this filled array, which when you do filled array square bracket 1, it will output 2, because arrays start at 0 index, so it'll be 0, 1, 2. So that's why when you do filled array 1, it will give you 2. If you want to modify the elements or set an index value, so here we have filled array, and we do filled array 1 equals, and we set it equal to a value. So now instead of 1, 2, 3, it's going to be 1, 42, 3. Arrays have methods, which can be static, or it can be an instance method. So we have static methods, which operate on arrays as a whole. So you want to do this when you're working with arrays as a whole concept. So like you're checking if it's an array or creating an array. So we have this example of array.isArray. We pass in an array. That's basically going to give us true or false if it's an array, and this prints out true. Instant methods operate on individual array instances. So here we have an array of numbers, and we call .push, and we pass in the number 4. And so we're saying that we want to add 4 to this instance of this array. So some kinds of instance methods would be map, filter, push, like we see here. So you'll use instance methods when working with specific arrays to manipulate or retrieve data from them. Callback functions and array methods. So a callback function is a function that you pass as an argument to another function, and it gets called later when the other function finishes its work. So you could think of it like giving someone instructions. You tell them what you want the task to be, and that would be the main function. And then afterwards, so you tell them the task to do now, which would be the main function, and then you tell them what to do after, which would be the callback function. So the callback function is saying, like, after you're done, call me back and do this. For an example, if you like order pizza and you tell the restaurant, call me when the pizza is ready. So the call you receive is like a callback function, and it happens after the main function, the main task, which in this case would be making the pizza. So here's an example. I have a few examples. So we have map, which the map function transforms every element in an array, and it returns a new array. So we can write map. We can do this two different ways. Here we're calling map on this array of numbers, and here we're basically saying for each element, multiply it by 2 and return a new array of that. So that's why when we print out new array, we get 2, 4, and 6. So if we look here and we write it as a callback function, we have double, which is, it doubles a number. And then we're using map with that callback. So double numbers will equal numbers dot map, and you pass in double. And now when you console log double numbers, it gives you 2, 4, 6, and 8. So just to break this down, the main function is the dot map method. So it's responsible for looping through each element in the numbers array, and its job is to take each element and pass it into the callback function for processing. And now the callback function is doubled numbers. And it defines the specific task to perform on each element. In this case, doubling the number. Map calls this function for each element in the array. So map takes the first number in the array and it passes it to double numbers, which returns 2. And then it takes the second number and passes it to double, and that will return 4. And so this process continues, and it collects all the results and creates a new array of 2, 4, 6, and 8. Same thing or similar with filter. So the filter function, it returns a new array with only elements that match a condition. So with filter, we're saying for each element, here we're saying for each element, if it's equally divisible by 2 and the remainder is 0, which means that the number is even, then create a new array of those numbers that meet that condition. So that's why it gives us a new array of 2 and 4. And so we have this is even function, which checks if a number is even, and then we're using filter with the callback. And again, it gives us 2 and 4 in an array. Another one is reduce. So with reduce, it combines array elements into a single value based on a reducer function. So in this example, it's adding up each element, adding one after the other. So that's why you get 6, because 1, and then it loops again, then it's adding 0 plus 1, and then it adds 2. So now it's going to be 3, and then it goes again, and then it's 3 plus 3. So that's how you get 6. And we see it in this example as a callback function. And we're passing in sum to this reduce method. And in this case, we get 10 because we're doing 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. I will say reduce is probably, it was like the hardest one for me to wrap my head around, but now it's kind of my favorite. It's like it's very powerful, and you can do so much with it. But yeah, so these are just some examples of array methods and using them with callback functions. Let's do some array cardio. So this is a dynamic function example. We have this create multiplier function, which takes in a factor and it returns a number times that factor. Then we have multiply by 2, which will equal the output of create multiplier when you pass in the number 2. And so when you print this out, you have this array of numbers 1, 2, 3. You call .map, which again, map will return a new array, and you're passing in multiply by 2, which again, now we have to go up and see what that does. That will give you the output of create multiplier 2. Now you go back and you see that when you pass in 2, for each number, it's going to multiply by 2. So that's how we get 2, 4, and 6. I will say personally, also for a callback, I mean, it's great to know, how it works and what it is. I prefer to write these out like the first way, just because I feel like it's easier to read for me, like as opposed to like referring to other lines. But yeah, it's definitely good to know, how to use callbacks and what they are. Maps. What are maps in JavaScript? So maps are a collection of key value pairs where keys can be any data type. So we have 2 examples here where we have a map and we have a key of name and the value of Alice. So the key here is a string, and then in the next example, the key is an array. So this is just an example of how with maps, the keys can be any data type. What are some practical use cases of maps? Storing dynamic keys, as we have in this example. You can use it to count occurrences. So we have this, we have word count, and we have this constructor, and we have this words array. And so for each word, we want to count how many times each word occurs in the array. And so when you log word count, it gives you apple 2, banana 1. So maybe you would use this like if you're building a shopping cart and you want to keep track of how many of each item a user has. You can also use maps to associate metadata with DOM elements. So here we're creating a map. We select some DOM elements. We have button and input, and then we associate metadata with these elements. So maybe you want to know if the button was clicked or what color it is. And for the input, maybe you want to know if it's focused and what the placeholder is. So this is just another example of how you would use maps and how dynamic it is. In order to add values to a map, you would use set, which takes in a key and a value. And to get that value back, you would use get, which takes in the key. So in this example, we have my map, and we're saying set name, which is going to be the key, and Alice is going to be the value. So when you log it, it will give you map and how many elements are in the map. So 1, and then name and Alice. And if I wanted to get that value, I would do my map.get, pass in the key, which in this case is name, and it will output Alice. Other things you can do on maps, you can call has and delete. So has takes a key and it's basically saying, does this map have this key? And we have seen that my map has the key name, the key called name. And so that returns true. And delete, you pass in a key, and if it's successful, it will return true. And so when you console log my map, because we deleted it, now we have map 0 and it's empty. So how would you loop over maps? There's 2 ways here. We have for of, which it loops over entries. So we have this for loop saying const key value of map, and you console log key : value, and the output will be the key name and then colon the value. So for of is ideal for simple loops or when you want to explicitly access keys or values. And we have for each. And as you can see here, the value goes first and then the key, so that when you console log it and you want to do key value, it will give you the correct key value pair. And for each is great for applying a callback or training other operations. So inside of the for each, you can also call map on the array or filter or yeah. So that's when you would want to use for each. Just wanted to point out differences between maps and objects because they do look similar, and you can do the same things, like get the same things done, with both for the most part. So here's some differences. Key types with maps, it can be any key type, but with objects, it has to be strings or symbols. The key order, when you add something to a map, it preserves that order that you inserted the element. So if you would insert it second, it's always going to be the second element. Whereas for an object, it does not guarantee the order. And maps are faster for frequent additions when it comes to performance, and objects are better for static structures. Which one should you use? So I'm gonna point out a few of these. So you want to use a map when you have dynamic key value pairs. So for example, like if you need to store key value pairs where the keys might change or be added frequently, and the keys can be any data type. So for example, you're storing user settings where each setting could have a dynamic complex key, such as an object or an array. Or you might also want to use maps if like the insertion order does matter. So like you need to ensure that the order of elements is maintained as they were inserted. So if you're implementing a feature where the order of user preferences or events matters, this is when you would use a map. You would use an object when you have static or known keys. So you know the keys in advance and they're not going to change, and they're strings or symbols. Objects are more efficient when the keys are fixed or predictable. So like you're storing configurations or settings that don't change often. Or you would use it for lightweight data storage, and you don't need all the functionality that a map has. So it would be like you're using an object to store properties of a product, and the product would probably have like name, price, a description, and those things don't change. An object, you can use an object for that. I would say in about 8 years, I've maybe used a map once. So you can probably lean towards using an object for most things. It will also get the job done, but it is great to know, what maps do and when to use them, and, be comfortable with them. So to recap, arrays, they are fundamental to a lot that we do in JavaScript. They have a lot of methods. I talked about map and filter and reduce, but there's a lot that will just make your life a lot easier. And there's advanced techniques like callback based operations. For maps, they have flexible key types. They preserve the order, and we learned about some use cases for those. So yeah, that's me. Thank you, and let me know if you have any questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Shirley and Dahnaya, for such an insightful and engaging session. Your clear explanations and examples really help make these complex topics approachable, and I know everyone here learned a lot. If you have any questions for Dahnaya and Shirley, you can ask in the chat. And I just want to say that Anna said that what a great explanation of callbacks. It's something that often confuses me.
Thank you. Any questions?
I don't see questions in the chat, but we truly appreciate the time and effort you both put into preparing and sharing your knowledge with us. It made such a difference. Thank you for being here and for contributing so much value to our study group.